Let's start with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. We'll kind of go in chronological order, I guess, until we throw it off when we go to the interview of the guy who's doing the show for Wednesday. But I will admit, this has been a very difficult UFC for me to get into. I think Colby Covington, while I'm sure there's just a character there, I think some of the stuff that he has done to promote his brand has been absolutely deplorable, and I want none of my money or brainpower, quite frankly, to go to him. And it's unfortunate he's so damn good that we have to keep talking about him. We will notice later on not a lot of technical analysis with Greg Hardy because I can't bring myself to watch this guy in a fight. It sucks, man. And it's the whole build up to the press conference was embarrassing for this weekend with Jorge Mazvidal getting set to take on Colby Covington in the main event here. And it's like I get it. I get that there is always this car crash element and there's a little bit of, well, if it's a personal issue, and I understand I'm different than a lot of people who are going to be tuning in on Saturday night. I just want to see who the best fighters are. I want to see the development of some of the young fighters that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I want to see quality martial arts at its highest level, which I believe the Ultimate Fighting Championship can provide. So I don't need it's personal. This guy used to train this guy. Then this guy called this dude a motherfucker. Now they face off Saturday. Pay for the whole seat, you only need the edge. Like, I don't need for lack of a better term, and I apologize if this stuff gets you, I don't need the knuckle dragging. I don't need the grand political, I'm going to take this to Trump and I'm going to I don't need all that shit. And so fight nights like this weekend are really, really difficult for me to get behind. I say it with G in the interview that we had. This is like the least likable UFC main card I can remember. And it's unfortunate because it was supposed to be a really great card with Alex Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway. You have Piotr Jan taking on Aljamain Sterling, but both of those fights pull out. So we get the shit show that we have coming up this weekend. In terms of some of the undercard fights, just quickly running through a couple of them. Tim Elliott fighting on this card is always interesting. You have someone with the name of Nurmagomedov, but it's not Khabib, obviously. That would be a bit more of the focus, I am sure. But let's get into a couple of the undercard fights. It is Marina Rodriguez taking on Yan Xiaonan in the women's strawweight division. Rodriguez, 34 years old with a 65-inch reach, standing at 5'6", born in Brazil, with a record of 15-1-2. 6 of those wins by knockout, 1 by submission. Her only loss went to the judges' scorecard. Her last bout was Ultimate Fight Night in October of 2021. In the main event, she defeats Mackenzie Dern by unanimous decision. She has won 3 in a row, and those 3, the aforementioned Dern, Michelle Watterson, and Amanda Ribas. The 34-year-old Rodriguez has also beat Tisha Torres and Jessica Aguilar. Her only loss coming by split decision to future title contender Carla Esparza. Her opponent, Jianan, 32 years old, 5'5", with a 63-inch reach, born in Shenyang, China, training out of China Top Team. She is 13-2 with 1 no contest, 5 wins coming by knockout. She has been stopped in both of her losses, including 2, the aforementioned Esparza, back in May of 2021, her last bout, which ended an 11-fight unbeaten streak. There's a no contest in there. It was her first loss since 2010. She is 5-1 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. She last finished an opponent in 2016. I am incredibly intrigued by this fight. I think that these are 2 of the best strawweights in the world. I don't want to say up and coming because they're 32 and 34. Not that that's over the hill, he says, at the age of 32 now. But I think that these are 2 fighters who can be very, very good. And this is a real test to see who can move up into that upper echelon. I would suggest that Rodriguez is already there. Wins over Dern and Watterson put you into a different category. A loss to Carla Esparza, well, certainly not anything to retire over or anything like that. It's a bit of a step back for Jianan. So I think Rodriguez, just the trajectory that she is on right now, I think Rodriguez gets the win in this bout. I'm going to say it probably goes to the judges' scorecards. Up next is Jalen Turner against Jamie Malarkey in the lightweight division. Turner, 26 years old, standing at 6'3", with a 77-inch reach advantage out of San Bernardino, California, training at Adrenaline Combat Sports. 11-5 is the record. 8-0. 8 wins by knockout. There's an 0 and KO. That's What threw me off? Anyway, 3 wins by submission. So all of those finishes, including his last fight, a submission win at UFC 266 over Uros Medic. He has won 3 in a row. He has finished all of them, the last 2 by submission, 4-2 in the UFC's octagon. After a win on the Contender Series, he made his professional debut in the World Series of Fighting. He has also fought at Tachi Palace Fights and at Bellator. So someone who has seen the bright lights a lot in just 16 fights as a 26-year-old. For Malarkey, 27 years old, standing at 6 feet tall with a 74-inch reach, out of New South Wales, Australia, training at Magnus MMA and Central Coast MMA. He makes the walk to the octagon with a 15-4 record, with 13 of those victories being stopped, including a fight over someone else on this card, Devonta Smith, back at Ultimate Fight Night on October 2nd of 2021, giving him back-to-back wins after 2 losses to start his UFC career. Both of his wins, he's finished. Both of his losses, went to decision. His only decision win was in his 2nd career victory. This is, again, I think a really intriguing fight for a couple of fighters who are a bit on the come up, 26, 27 years old. A couple of fighters who are still pretty new to their octagon tenure, although it's crazy, man. Turner, already 6 fights in the UFC. With some of these guys who fight on either the Fight Night cards or the prelims, it really sneaks up on you. Interesting story about Turner. He actually grew up with arachnophobia, and to help combat his fear of spiders, he started collecting tarantulas as pets. By the time he made his UFC debut, he had 200 of them. So he turned being arachnophobic into the nickname the Tarantula. Talk about making your weaknesses your strengths. That is crazy. I think Turner gets the win in this bout, but I think it's a very close competitive fight. We go to the main card, and it's unfortunate. Sergey Spivak taking on Greg Hardy. This fight was initially supposed to be at UFC 270. Hardy withdrew from a finger injury, so it was moved to this weekend. For Spivak, 27 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach, born in Moldova, 13-3 for his career, with 11 of the 13 wins being stopped. He has been stopped in 2 of his 3 losses, including his last one back at Ultimate Fight Night on September 4th, 2021. That ended a 3-fight winning streak. He has wins over Jared Vandera and Tai Tuivasa. Started his career 9-0 before an L in his UFC debut. He is 4-3 in the octagon. Hardy is 33 years old, standing at 6'5" with a record of 7-4, with his last last loss coming against Tai Tuivasa at UFC 264. He has lost 2 in a row and is 2-3 in his last 5. I find him to be a deplorable human being who has not necessarily come forward in the ways that you would want someone to after the allegations that were presented against him. And because of this, I can't bring myself to talk too much about him. I think Sergey wins. That'd be 3 losses in a row for Greg Hardy. Hopefully he's out of my life forever after this bout. Kevin Holland taking on Alex Oliveira in the welterweight division. Holland, 29 years old, standing at 6'3" with an incredible 81-inch reach. Born in Riverside, California, training at Travis Lutter Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Was it Lutter who Goldberg called the Michael Jordan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? God, no, it's not him. I'm blanking on this now. I shouldn't have brought this up. I don't think I should edit this out. I'm not going to. Anyway, Holland, 21-7 with 1 no contest, 12 victories by way of knockout, 5 by submission. He has also been submitted twice with 5 decision losses. His last fight, a no contest on October 2nd of last year against Kyle Dawkins, accidental clash of heads. It was a 2-fight losing streak before this, with losses to Vettori and Brunson. So maybe not necessarily at the tippy top of middleweight, but he returns to welterweight for the first time since 2017. Those 2 L's follow a 5-win 2020. He holds the record for most wins in a calendar year in UFC middleweight history with 5, and most bouts in a 12-month period in UFC history with 7. That is crazy. He is 8-4 in the UFC after a win on the Contender Series. He also has a win in Bellator and has been a pro since 2015. Oliveira, with a complicated past, comes in at 34 years old, 5'11", 76-inch reach, training out of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 22-11-1 with 2 no contests on his career, coming off of a unanimous decision loss to Nico Price back on Ultimate Fight Night on October 2nd of 2021. He has lost 3 in a row. The first of the three, this one was the first of the three where he wasn't submitted. He is 2-6 in his last 8. And for someone who has this gunslinger, wild, crazy knockout guy type of a reputation, hasn't stopped an opponent since 2018. I have said before, the reputation for Oliveira far outweighs the ability at this point. I think Holland kind of beats the crap out of him, to be perfectly honest. And I said before, there is a complicated backstory with this man. 10 children from various relationships, which I'm not going to say is complicated. You do you, homie. He suffered a leg injury in 2018. He went for surgery on Christmas Eve that year to remove fragments from a grenade when he went to get gas for his mom's car in Três Rios, Brazil, and a grenade was thrown towards him. Also, reports indicating a seemingly intoxicated Oliveira got into an altercation with a security guard during a party on May 24th, 2019. The next morning, Oliveira showed up at his wife's apartment where he allegedly assaulted her, fleeing the scene on a motorcycle with their baby daughter. The child was found on May 26th at one of Oliveira's sister's apartments. He was actually kind of a missing person until he just popped up for a fight at UFC 248. It is, again, a complicated background for Cowboy Oliveira. He is a heavy underdog, and I think rightfully so, going into this bout tonight. Saturday night. Edson Barbosa taking on Bryce Mitchell in the featherweight division. Barbosa, 36 years old, at 5'11", 75-inch reach, born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 22-10 is the record. 13 wins coming by knockout. He has also been stopped in 6 of his 10 losses, including his last one to Giga Chikadze back at the UFC on ESPN on August 28th of 2021. That ended a 2-fight winning streak, which puts Barbosa now at 2-2 in the featherweight division. Although 3-6 in his last 9. After an amazing run where he beat Dariush, Melendez, and Pettis, he was ready to go, and it's kind of fallen off since then. 15-10 in the UFC after making his UFC debut at UFC 123, Rampage against Machida, a pro since 2009. And this is someone who has literally been fighting his entire life. He was born premature at 28 weeks, had a 50-50 chance of survival. Not only has he survived, he has thrived, as he has been one of the most exciting UFC fighters for, the last 150 UFC numbered events. Bryce Mitchell, 27 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, born in Cabot, Arkansas. 14-0 is the record, 5 wins by decision, the rest by submission. He has a unanimous decision win over Andre Fili back on Halloween 2020. He is an alumni of the Tough Undefeated show. He is 5-0 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which includes a twister submission in 2019. That was the only fight on his resume not to go to decision. Finished his first 8 wins. He also has 2 victories at WSOF and a pro since 2015. This is an up-and-coming prospect, and he is facing an interesting challenge tonight. It is clear from the resume, 9 submission wins, no knockout wins. This is someone who is rather skilled in the grappling department. He is going up against someone who is extremely skilled on the feet. I want to pick Barbosa in the worst way. He has been my favorite fighter, or one of my favorite fighters for forever, going back to the just stunning knockout of Terry Edom back at UFC 143, I believe that was. He is an extremely skilled striker. It does seem like it is slowing down for him a little bit, though. I still think he has it. I'm gonna go on a limb on this one and say that Barbosa gets the win in a big featherweight division bout. This is an interesting one. It is a catch weight at 160 pounds between Rafael Dos Anos and Renato Moicano. This fight has been all over the place. It's also a 5-round fight. So the kind of tale that we weave going into this one. Dos Anos was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev back on October 24th of 2020, but he tested positive for COVID. It was rescheduled for November 14th. Makhachev pulled out for an injury. Paul Felder took the fight on a week's notice. Dos Anos gets the win. That's his last victory, a split decision back November 14th, 2020. Dos Anos was then scheduled to fight Rafael Fiziev back on February 19th of 2022. It was postponed to a visa issue. Fiziev then tests positive for COVID. This week, we found out on fucking Tuesday that this was happening. Renato Moicano steps in on 4 days' notice to take this bout, hence 160-pound catchweight. This was supposed to be a 5-round fight on a fight night card. Obviously, that's not happening, but it is a 5-round fight anyway for the former lightweight champion, Rafael Dos Anos, who is 37 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach, born in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, training at Evolve MMA, 30-13 for his career with 15 finishes on his resume. His victory over Paul Felder was a return to lightweight after a 4-4 run at welterweight. He has losses to Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. The win also ended a 3-fight losing streak for him. His last 7 bouts have gone at least 15 minutes. 6 of them have gone longer. The one that didn't was only scheduled for 3 rounds, so he physically couldn't have fought any longer. The former champion beat Anthony Pettis for the title, defended it against Cowboy Cerrone, and then lost it to Eddie Alvarez. He is a remarkable 19-10 in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. His UFC debut was UFC 91 with Randy Couture and Brock Lesnar fighting at the top of the card. He fought on the undercard with George Gurgel and Mark Bocek. The co-main event was Kenny Florian against Joe Daddy Stevenson. So this is someone who can help fill out a lot of 6 degrees of separation when it comes to previous eras of MMA. He has been fighting for a long time. He is a 4th degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, turned pro in 2004 after winning a Jiu-Jitsu World Championship in 2003. Moicano, 32 years old. He stands at 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, born in Brasilia, Brazil, trains an American top team. 16-4-1 is the professional record for Moicano, with 7 decision wins, the rest coming by submission. He has been knocked out in 3 of his 4 losses submitted in the other one. He is coming off of a fight that I was really impressed with at the last UFC pay-per-view, UFC 271 against Alex Hernandez on February 12th, so less than a month ago. The thing that I liked about Moicano was his finishing instincts, how quickly it was a normal 2-3 punch combination that just kept going. And just kept going and just kept going and eventually got the win. He noticed something that was a little bit off in Hernandez's game, and I think he was able to kind of power forward and secure the finish. He is now on a 2-fight winning streak, 3-1 at lightweight after a move to featherweight. After the move from featherweight, sorry. His last 4 wins have been by submission, 7-4 in the UFC with 3 decisions. I like Moicano's game a lot. I think I might be blinded a little bit because that was one of my favorite performances of the night back at UFC 271. He got off to a slow start, and that would be concerning against a bit of a grinder like Dos Anjos, but I think Moicano will get the job done here in an amazing short notice story. Which brings us to the main event of the evening. It is Jorge Mazvidal taking on Colby Covington. Covington, 34 years old, standing 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, born in Clovis, California. He trains at MMA Masters, 16-3 for his career. He has finished exactly half of his wins, and he has been finished in exactly 2/3 of his losses. One of the ones where he wasn't finished was a unanimous decision loss to Kamaru Usman back in his last fight at UFC 268. He has losses in 2 of his last 3 fights. Both of those are to Kamaru. We're going to see a theme here. He had won 7 in a row leading into that first Usman fight. The former interim welterweight champion, both of his losses to Usman are for the main title. 10-3 in the UFC, a pro since 2012 and a former Division I All-American wrestler at Oregon State. His opponent, Mazvidal, 37 years old, standing 5'11" with a 74-inch reach, born in Miami, Florida, training an American top team, which has been the center for a lot of the hate this week. 35-15 is the career record for Mazvidal. That is, again, professional record anyway. 16 wins by knockout, 2 by submission. He has also been knocked out twice and submitted twice. He was knocked out in his last fight, losing to Kamaru Usman at UFC 261. Back-to-back losses to Usman after a 3-fight winning streak. He owns the fastest knockout in UFC history, 12-8 in the UFC, including a win over Nate Diaz for the BMF championship. Based on merit, I don't see either of these men fighting Kamaru Usman again for the welterweight championship. They would both love if Usman was able to pull the trigger and go fight Canelo Alvarez in September and get his head knocked off. But they would love if the welterweight title was just up for grabs, because I think if Kamaru Usman doesn't exist, these are two fighters. This fight could conceivably be for the welterweight championship. These are two very skilled fighters. Colby Covington has been fighting for relevance for a while, and that is when he called Brazil and all of their people dirty. He paid models, in quotation marks, to walk around with him and cause a ruckus in Vegas. He has said some horribly offensive things to try to stay relevant. Now he has to use his hands and his feet for approximately 25 minutes to stay relevant when it comes to the fight game, as another loss here and all that shit talking doesn't mean a whole lot when you've lost to the top two guys in the division. For Mazvidal, he has rocketed into this form of relevancy coming off of the Ben Askren knockout. The story is fairly well told. He was on a reality show and he was kind of like, what the hell am I doing with my life? And he was able to turn it around, gets the giant knockout of Askren, turns it into the BMF fight with Nate Diaz. The Rock is there. It turns him into one of the biggest stars in the UFC. Since then, though, back-to-back losses to Kamaru Usman. Again, if you want to stay relevant when it comes to being one of the best fighters in the world, this is a fight you need to win. Both of these fighters are desperate for a victory in this bout to try to stay relevant in the welterweight landscape. How much that matters is depressingly little, actually, when you look at how these two are both able to talk their way into fights. But for the purposes of this show, the whole smart sports fan thing, this is where this comes in. I don't give a shit about how much you can talk your way into a title fight. It pains me to hear Dana not just brush off the thought of Conor getting the next title shot. It pains me to hear that the winner of this fight could say, yeah, jump the line and get another shot at Kamaru Usman. I hate that kind of stuff, and I hate that the UFC is into it. But just from a strictly fighting perspective and a strictly who is the best martial artist on the planet, these two desperately need a victory in this fight to stay relevant in that spot. For Mazvidal, I noted this on Twitter earlier this week. This is someone whose career really can highlight the early post-tough boom of this sport. Because you had, like, we all know the dark ages where, I mean, it's this wild no rules thing in UFC 1 and 2 and everyone's watching on pay-per-view, and then John McCain calls it human cockfighting and it's only legal in like 12 states in the United States, and so there's this dark period. Tough comes, everyone sees the light on mixed martial arts, and from there everyone wanted a piece, right? Like the fastest growing sport in the world, everyone wanted a piece. You know Bodog, the place where you can like place bets, they have an online casino, all of those sorts of things. They also had a fight promotion at one time, and Jorge Mazvidal fought in it. He fought against Yves Edwards. This is someone who was on the undercard of Kimbo Slices on the street, not in Elite XC or on CBS. No, on YouTube. Dude was fighting on the undercard for Kimbo. Like, just every little weird MMA thing you want to swim down, any stream you want to go onto with weird early MMA, Masvidal has dabbled. Fought Yves Edwards at Bodog fight. Fought in Strikeforce, which is fine. Fought at the Playboy Mansion in Strikeforce. Fought in the Bellator tournaments. Bellator 5, he gets caught in an inverted triangle by Toby Amada. This is someone who the early days of MMA, if you want a bit of a history lesson on how it was, you can go back and look at Jorge Masvidal's resume, because he fought on the same Shark Fights card on Access TV as Sokaju. For the 3 fight fans who are going to recognize that, it's crazy how far back in this game Masvidal goes, and it's unfortunate that he's had to kind of turn into a bit of a caricature to kind of stay relevant. I also, for Colby, I have no excuses for any type of racist behavior. I don't necessarily agree with all of Masvidal's kind of political leanings, but for him, there is a bit of an unenviable task of you're going up against Kamaru Usman, who is just a remarkably likable figure. And so Masvidal has kind of had to turn up the heel heat a little bit on this one, so to speak. So an interesting bout coming up in the welterweight division. I feel like Masvidal has more tools in the toolbox, but I think the ones that Covington has can make, Masvidal has more tools. Colby might have harder hitting tools, if that makes sense. I didn't want to go bigger because that implies a lot. Anyway, I think Colby wins this one, and I'm going to hate it, but I I envision something crazy going down at the end of this fight. I really do. So anyway, there is your UFC 272 breakdown. We will not be going live immediately following UFC 272. It's going to be a busy weekend with Revolution going down. So I might do something on Sunday morning, but for sure Sunday night after AEW Revolution, we will have a post-fight show.